Good morning. Welcome to my teaching learning session. Today we are going to continue with block 2 and move towards block 3. Okay. So let's look at the first unit here, which is using body language effectively, right? So this unit will help you to expand your vocabulary regarding non-verbal communication. Understanding the non-verbal communication, recognize the importance of body language, and improve your own body language. So, first of all, let's understand what is body language, right? Or what is non-verbal communication for that matter. So, verbal communication, which is vocal, where you are using speech as the form of communication. Now, what is non-verbal communication? Non-verbal communication is where you convey information without the use of verbal language. Okay, that's pretty much understood, right? The name itself says non-verbal communication. So you have what are the types of non-verbal communication? First, you have eye contact. Second is facial expressions. For example, right now when we talk, a lot has been communicated not just through the speech that I am right now communicating, right? Speech. It's also through the body language that we have. Okay, for let's say if you're talking in a meeting, there is a certain body language that you follow. There are certain expressions and gestures. In fact, it is very interesting to note that without these non-verbal cues, it will be pretty difficult to understand things through verbal communication. I mean, of course, verbal communication plays a huge part, but without the gestures, without the facial expressions, for example, let's say there is a sentence, and it could have what we study in pragmatics, right? So there is a sentence that could have multiple meanings, right? It depends on the way it is communicated. It is dependent on your intonation, your pitch, right? So, for example, if I have to say, "Oh, you're looking good today," right? So that could also be condescending. The tone that I use while communicating the same thing, it could differ. The facial expressions that I use, for example, if I have to say the same sentence, "You're looking good." Now, when you're saying it genuinely to offer a compliment to somebody, you'll be like, "Oh my God, you're looking good," right? It will show through your facial expressions. Now, if I have to make, it could also be used as a sarcasm, like think of few very popular movies, right? And where you see, or think of high school movies, where you see this very, condescending female. She's commenting on, just taking a light example here. So if she has to comment or probably sarcastically comment on somebody's attire or maybe anything that uh, is the positive quality of that. That is not the positive trait of that person at that moment. That is not the best moment that the person is undergoing. But if they have to point it out, then you could also say, like, "Oh, you're looking very good today," right? So here, the expressions that you make, the facial expressions that you give, the tone that you use, they become very, very important. Okay. So this is let me give you a task for this now. Okay, uh, and this is a fun task, just to have a warm up sort of thing. Whatever movies you look at, or whatever movies you see in this week, or any show that you watch, wherever you notice a sentence that is communicating something else in words, but is intended, probably intended as a pun or as a satire or as a sarcasm. Just note down those sentences, right? And then you'll see how important is your body language in communicating the ideas. We never ever pay attention towards it, but it's only when you start noticing it in day-to-day life then you understand that okay, how something comes to you, whether it is coming in a didactic manner, whether it is coming with a hint of sarcasm, whether it is coming with a request, a tone of request, right? That is identical only through the other factors that act as the connotation to what is being said. So the context is being implied through the other factors other than verbal communication. So the non-verbal part of communication becomes absolutely important here, right? Now, let's just talk about what are the various types of nonverbal communication, and then we'll go to the other part that we were talking earlier. So, what are the types of nonverbal communication? First is eye contact, right? So, right now when I'm sitting on in on this platform and I cannot see any of you, right? But still I am constantly looking at the camera to ensure that I have a certain engagement with you. Let's say if I do not look at the camera and I just keep on looking at the screen and end this entire session looking at the screen, it will not be engaging for you, right? So the reason I constantly look at the camera is to maintain that uh, that imagine that virtual eye contact with you, where you feel that you are connected with me, and I feel that I'm connected to you, right? So this becomes very important, eye contact, even if let's say, and how is it important? How is it relevant for you in terms of interviews? Let's say if you're talking to somebody, you're presenting your ideas to somebody, and you are not making eye contact with them, and you keep on looking here and there, or if they are talking, and it does happen with a lot of people when it's about interviews. So often when I have had that experience to interview people, I've seen that a lot of students, they are very shy and they will not look at the camera. No, I'm sorry, not look at the camera is here, but they'll not look at the person that they are talking to, and camera also in a sense, because when you do these online, in last few years when you do these online interviews, and you see that people will keep on looking here and there, and that can happen face to face as well. So when you look at someone, okay, it's a different thing to probably take a while. Like when I'm talking, it's not that I'm constantly looking at the camera, and when I'm thinking, I'm looking here and there, but I'm making it evident that I'm talking to you, right? So you cannot, obviously do not have to stare the person to death, right? You have to look at them and you have to ensure that they feel that they are being heard, or when you are speaking, they feel that you're speaking to them. So that has to be there, and don't give them that stare which is scary, right? It has to be a look of acknowledgement, a look of understanding, a look of expression. Okay. So, talking about the interview thing, what happens that a lot of students or a lot of people, they will keep on looking here and there. So, let's say that if the person is talking to you and you are looking here there and you are not doing it consciously, most of the people, they're not doing it consciously. They're probably shy, or it's making them nervous to look at the person. So they start looking here and there just to maintain their level of confidence, just to avoid getting intimidated, and they do it subconsciously. So probably they don't know that they are doing it until unless somebody tells them. So this has to be kept in mind. And how would you know that? I mean, the only way to do that is probably try mock interviews that we had discussed earlier, so that your friends, and record them on video. Okay, so that when you see those recordings, you will know how you were behaving. What was your body language? What were you doing wrong? Because on recordings, it is easier to identify these things, right? So first is expand. Okay, so types of nonverbal communication: eye contact. Okay, a reasonable eye contact. Okay, um, and it shouldn't be intimidated. It shouldn't be uh, scary. It shouldn't be. I mean, if you keep on looking at a person's eyes constantly, that could be a little weird, a little awkward. So if there is a panel and there are many people, you have to ensure that you are looking at everybody in a manner while speaking that they all feel acknowledged. Let's say if there are five people, so while you are talking to them, you have to look at everybody. Okay, you have to make them all feel that you acknowledge their presence and that you're trying to explain what you're saying, not just to one person. Maybe, if the question has been asked by one person, you look at them and answer it. And also in the middle of that, you can look at other people, right? So that balance will come with practice. It cannot be, there is no, 5 second, 10 seconds rule that, 10 seconds you have to look at this person, 5 seconds. There's no rule like that. That has to come with a lot of practice, with a lot of understanding or cognizance of where you are and what is happening, right? So eye contact is first thing. Now second thing, facial expressions, very important. So when I gave you that example about, you're probably giving a, whether you are giving a compliment or you are just jibing the person, that will be identified through the tone and facial expressions that you give along. So think of a poo in K3G. So when she tells this other female that you wore the same outfit 3 days ago, so you see what is she doing? I mean, she said it's looking very nice. Her outfit is looking very nice. So, but at the same, but it's not a genuine compliment, right? And how do you make that out? So you look at the actress's expressions at that time, and you recognize that it's definitely not a compliment, right? Or when I talk about other movies, so you can look at so whatever movie you're going to watch next, try to pick out. I mean, this is just for your you know uh, your a fun exercise for you, or your ability to identify those cues, those facial expressions cues, right? Because when we are watching movies and when we are watching stuff and we are looking at people, it is automatically, we can always, more than often, we can make out that if the person is saying this, whether the person means it as uh, in the context of the words, or it has a hidden meaning, or um, it has a pun intended that you need to identify. Okay. So facial expressions, then gestures. Gestures, you already know. So you can, like when I'm talking right now, so maybe you cannot see my hand movements, but some of these gestures are very, very natural. I mean, these are spontaneous, and they help you emphasize something. And for example, when I'm teaching in a classroom, it is very, very helpful at times to have those gestures, and it makes things easier. Let's say, for example, if there is a class and there are 100 students, okay, and I have to call out a certain person, and if I'll be like, I'll look straight and I'll say, yeah, that person on the left, it will be very difficult. But if I look at that person and I say, yes, you, so it is easier, right? So can you imagine now? I mean, there are so many things, when we study about language, there are so many things that we realize that we have been taking all this so much for granted, right? For example, the difference between animal communication and human communication. So I mean, compared to animals, there are so many advantages that we have as humans, right? And there are things that you study about displacement and so many other things. And we have so many speech sounds to communicate so many things, right? So we take it so much for granted, right? And now that we have this privilege as humans, if we have this privilege of communicating in a much better way, why not use it to our advantage, right? And why not pay attention towards it? That's something that people ignore because they think that it's language we have already been speaking this since birth, and there's no reason why we should put in extra efforts to this. But good communication, like I've always said, it helps you go great guns. Okay. Now, so gestures are very important. Posture, how you sit. Not just sitting, any posture that you maintain in any particular place. For example, when you're hanging out with your friends, you'll have a different posture altogether. When you are sitting at a, let's say, if you are in um, in the limelight at that moment, then you probably automatic. Sometimes it happens just very organically. You will develop that alarm, alert body language, right? And let's say if you're sitting in a position of authority, if you have to imagine yourself sitting as a student and compare that with the way your teacher is sitting in the class. It cannot be seen, you know. A student can probably slouch and even lay down a bit on the chair, but a teacher cannot do that. Okay, same goes for bosses in the office, and interns. So when interns join, they probably learn all these things. This is the time when they are being conditioned or groomed to understand these dynamics of course, the protocols, the official protocols, but as well as the mannerism, the etiquettes. And when we move ahead, and in the last blog, this is something that we are going to focus at specifically. So now here, posture becomes important. Use of objects. Let's say if you're holding a pen during a presentation, how do you use that pen? How do you use that to? So everything. Let's say if you're carrying a handkerchief, if you've gone to a party. Let's say it's a party in your office. How are you carrying your handbag? If you're a woman, and if you're a man, then again you could have anything like a handbag or a packet or a file. I mean, you're not carrying file in a party, but generally, if you're in the office, you're carrying a file. How do you carry those things? That also, indicates. For example, let's say you come to somebody's table and you give them something. I mean, when we are talking about objects, how objects are part of body language. So let's say you have a set of files and you hand it over to someone. How you hand it over to that person, that again becomes a part of the body language. You can probably keep it on the desk in a respectful manner. You will probably throw it on that person's desk, right? So now what happens when you throw a file? It is disrespectful. It shows aggression. It shows that you probably are not on very good terms with that person. So you see, even objects can communicate emotions, which is very interesting. All right, now body language. So yeah, body language includes body language is a very vast term actually. It includes social cues, right? What is kinesics? It's interpretation of body motion, communication, and another name for body language. So you have read about kinetic energy in your science books, right? So what does it talk about? It talks about movement, right? So that is what kinesics is all about. It's interpretation of body motion, communication, and it is also used as another name for body language. Now, proxemics. What is proxemics? It's distance, study of human use of space, right? Now, physical environments or appearance. Then you have paralanguage of voice. What is paralanguage? Which is connected to your anything to do with your voice. So this could talk about pitch, intonation, etc. Then you have haptics. So this specifically is not a part of the syllabus that you have, but it is important to know when we're talking about body language, what exactly constitutes body language. So even if you do not go in details of these, it becomes important to understand what all constitutes body language, because we can say that you need to maintain good body language, but what is body language, right? When you talk about good, I mean, you're going to make something good better only when you know what it consists of. So it is not just about the gestures that are, there's so many other factors involved. How you hold a file when you enter the interview room, how you're holding your file, how you move the chair, how you sit, everything. Okay. So, and you see, there is such a huge variety to it. I mean, it includes even use of space. For example, if you're going to sit in the interview room, you can pull the chair. To what distance do you pull the chair? How do you pull the chair? How do you sit on it? It's all being noticed, right? Because you are interview in itself is a process of scrutinization. You're being scrutinized at that moment, and how much comfort level do you show with that scrutinization process becomes very important. Right. So then physical environments, appearance, paralanguage, haptics, of touch. Okay, so haptics originate from the Greek word heptikos. Okay, and it implies anything to do with touch. So you see in this slide also, handshake. What is it? It's a body language through touch, right? And yeah, so all these parts are there. Now, what are we going to focus on now that we have understood what is nonverbal communication? What are the types of nonverbal communication? And we talked about various types. And when we talk about body language, what constitutes body language? We have looked at so many different types of things which constitutes body language. And now it is on us to think how we improve these things to our advantage. How do we tame our our expressions, not only in terms of verbal but non-verbal communication? How do we do that so that it makes a better impression altogether? All right. Now, expand your vocabulary regarding non-verbal communication. So, I have given you a lot of new words, which are, I mean, it's not there in your blog per se, but you can always go and do your own research. You do not have to specifically stick. I mean, go through the study material, which is quite detailed, which is quite informative. And also, you put your own, if you are interested in any of the topics, you can do your own research. But of course, you need to finish that study material first to go through it and see. So, when, like, if you came across this topic, body language, what are the types? Just reading about it is not enough. Okay, the material can be provided to you. So, how do you practice it? There are so many exercises given, so you can go through that and incorporate that. Okay, because see, this paper is not all about theory. When we talk about English at workplace or English in daily life, these are uh, these are not things to be learned theoretically. These are things that you need to practice. Otherwise, it will only become knowledge which is of no use, right? And these are practical things. I mean, going for an interview or writing your CV or doing the research for a job, all those things that we have covered or we are covering right now. These are things that you actually need in life. And very soon, I mean, you might be in the process, or you're very soon going to be in the process. So we cannot just read about it or give lectures on it. And it is important that whatever you are learning, you put it in practice. Okay, so all the mock interviews, the exercises which are given in your study material, they're very, very helpful. Go through it. But again, the exercises which are practical in nature, where you are being asked to practice with your friends or, do mock interviews or do some self practice, those need to be there. Okay. All right. So, expand your vocabulary regarding non-verbal communication. Understand non-verbal communication. What is non-verbal that we have already covered? Recognize the importance of body language. Again, something that we have discussed. Improve your own body language. Now, this is the point that I was making. That till the time you don't put it into practice, learning theoretically will not help. Now, face an interview panel. So, how can you do that? Of course, when you start going for the interviews, will be doing it very frequently. But even now, at a very at your preparation stage, you could do mock interviews. You could ask. I told you in previous classes that 4 or 5 friends could just create this. You could interview each person, maybe meet once or twice in a week, and then like organize an interview for one person, the next time the other person. So, or maybe on the same day you can do it for other people. So, what happens when you are sitting as interviewers and interviewing somebody else? You understand the psychology. You see what the other person is doing, and start recording those. Right? Start recording these mock interviews that you're doing. So, when how you perform as an interviewee, that you could you could always check and work on yourself. And I'm sure automatically you will be able to realize that, okay, I'm doing wrong. So that's the best way to do that. Okay, so improve your own body language. Face an interview panel. So that's what you're doing. So with this particular exercise, we're accomplishing a lot of things. Prepare and deliver a speech impressively. So this is an exercise that you can do alone as well. And like I have said earlier, that probably use a lot of people use mirror. You could do that, but a better way would be to use the video recording. So you do it before your phone, and then you can see it later and identify those places where you are committing mistakes. Okay. All right. So now, let's do a light exercise right now. Look around you at the people in the room, wherever you are, and whenever you're watching this. Just look around you at the people in the room and identify. So, one exercise that I've given you is to look at the pragmatics portion of communication. That is, and do it through probably any show or movie that you watch. Try to, what was the exercise again? Write down the sentences which are communicated, which literally means something else, but due to the expressions and gestures, or the body language of the person, you know that it was meant to signify something else, right? Now, second thing is like right now, you could look around you and at the people who are in the room, probably, and identify their body movements. So you see, you are developing this ability to notice. When you start noticing other people, then you'll know what you should not be doing, right? What is putting you off? What is putting you off will generally put people off, right? So body movements that indicate interest. See when probably if your mother is working in the kitchen, what is her body language? Is she irritated, exhausted with the work? Is she enjoying the work? Okay, or is she? Sometimes when people are doing some activities, it's sort of meditative for them. So look at her or look at anybody who's around you, probably your father, your siblings, whoever, whatever they are doing. What is their body language? What can you observe about them? Whatever they are doing, are they enjoying it? Do they hate it? Or are they doing it as a creature of routine and habit? Okay, so note that. So what will be the note down the body movements which indicate interest. It's actually a very interesting exercise, and one should try this. I'm going to try it, so you should as well. So body movements that indicate interest. Second is body movements which indicate boredom. Then signals exhibiting authority or power. Movements that convey pride. So signals which exhibit authority or power. Movements that convey pride. What do you understand by this? So you see, ego has become very, at least with what I observe these days, it has become a predominant, part of people's behavior. They are some of the people who are not aligned with themselves. They tend to behave totally in control with the with these eccentricities or idiosyncrasies. So you have to see that when they are angry, when they are offended, how their body language transitions. It happens, or you can even observe yourself. It happens with all of us, right? When we are not in the best frame of mind, there is a sometimes abrupt, sometimes gradual transition in our body language. How does that happen? Just observe that. And yeah, pride. And a very interesting thing would be to notice how pride is different from ego, so or self confidence. So when you see people behaving in the way, of course, it will be a lot of your own discretion, but you need to observe. You try to observe. It's not an easy thing, but is a certain attitude or behavior originating due to confidence, or is it originating due to pride? Or is the person trying to, sometimes what happens, people try to maintain a very confident behavior or attitude in order to feel secure. That can often be inferred as aggression by other people, right? So that's important. Now discuss the impact of these movements with a friend. Sometimes it's also interesting to know why people behave the way they behave. There could be a very predominant body language that they usually show. So, what could be the reason behind it? So, you cannot find it out with everybody, but maybe people closer to you. It could also give you an insight, and it could help you understand. It takes place in various ways. Most people think that the most popular way of communication is by speaking, right? Generally, we think that the most popular way of communication is by speaking. And what I'm reiterating it here, what they don't know is that actual verbal communication accounts for only 10% of a message. Very often, words transmitted verbally do not reflect what people really feel, right? So when we were talking about these puns and satires and sarcasm, so what people are saying, they don't always mean that. You know? And it could also be that, when you talk about, let's say, if you are in an interview and somebody tells that, oh, you've been very good, you performed very well, right? But later on, you get to know that you were not selected for it. So what happened there? Maybe at that moment you were the employers liked you as a candidate, but they found somebody better. That could be, or somebody better. Maybe better is not the right term. Somebody who performed better in that interview, or somebody who suited or catered to their needs in a better way, right? So, um, so thing, or they could also tell you that you were great. Maybe we could work again, and we will call you. So they are probably trying to communicate it politely. Maybe they do not have any intention of calling you back. Maybe they do, but they are trying to communicate that politely that you have not been selected. So that's probably a good example of what people say and what they mean, right? Sometimes it also happens that that happens in negative connotations as well, negative experiences as well, when people have promised something and they don't do it, or let's say somebody loaned money from you, just an example, right? So somebody loaned money from you and they said that I fully intend to return it by this week, and they totally disappeared. So they did not have the intention of probably returning that money to you since beginning itself. So what they are saying and what they are doing is totally different. Or let's say you ask somebody for some sort of help with your academics, and they said, "Yeah, yeah, I'll be there, I will be around," but they stop taking your calls. So what happens there? Again, what they said and what they do, because some people are not very good at confrontations. So they'll just say yes, yes, and then they'll probably escape that situation of saying no or refusing. Some people are very direct, and it could feel bad to other people. Some, again, even the receiver of that communication could vary. Some people like things to be communicated directly to them. Some people like it to be told in a softer manner, or probably not. They are not okay hearing a blatant no. So it's actually a tricky business, right? To be able to communicate efficiently all the time, and it will not always be right all the time as well. But we have to try and ensure, because that's the way humans um, associate with each other. So it is important. All the efforts are worth it. So that's there. So that communication between people takes place in various ways, and the actual verbal communication accounts for only 10% of a message. A lot is depending on the way it is communicated to other non-verbal cues. The only way you can determine their true inner feelings is by reading their body language, and sometimes even that could go wrong. Some people have mastered the art of body language, so um, you could be accurate most of the times if you're really working on it. But it is not always 100% accurate. It's not an exact science. Okay, so let's look at the most popular interpretations. Okay. So, brisk, erect walk, that implies confidence, right? Standing with hands on hips, Readiness, aggression. This is there in your study material. So, brisk, erect walk, confidence. Standing with hands on hips, readiness, aggression. Sitting with legs crossed or foot kicking slightly. So have you seen, these little kids when they're sitting and they're bored and they want to do something and they're not getting to do what they want to do. You'll see them that they're shaking their legs or kicking their foot slightly. That represents boredom. So if someone is sitting legs apart, they're open, relaxed. Just imagine somebody returning from office in the evening, very tired. What do? They sit on the sofa or the couch, and they are like very very relaxed. They are in a relaxed mode, so they just come and lie down. They are not really conscious because the entire day they have been sitting in the office, maintaining a certain posture, a certain body language, which is appropriate for the office protocols. So when they come home, they're probably relaxed and they don't care. Even kids when they return from school, they'll just take off their tie, throw it here and there. I mean, that's not the ideal way, but that's because they are very tired, right? So, but they are not sitting like that in the classroom, most probably. So, sitting legs apart, open, relaxed, arms crossed on chest. That shows defensiveness, when a person is like, I mean, you must have seen in a few shows, reality shows where somebody is fighting, you'll often see they go like this, right? So, this shows defensiveness. Now, walking with hands in pockets, shoulders hunched. That often shows dejection. So, think about all these. Poems or even cartoon movies that you see animation when they have to show a person who's really sad. So let's take another Bollywood example. So in Jab We Met, if you see how Shahid Kapoor is, when he's going through the train, what is his body language in that movie when he's walking alone on the railway station? So you look at that body language; it shows. I mean, what is acting? Even in acting, they are. It's not just about the dialogues that are being delivered. It's so much about the facial expressions. It's so much about their body language, right? So acting incorporates all that, and the reason you are able to relate, the reason you are able to identify or understand through a medium of through a virtual medium, you are able to relate to those feelings is because they are imitating life. Okay, they're imitating life through art. Okay. So, walking with hands in pockets, shoulders hunched. I mean, you talk of this, and immediately that image comes to mind. And even in real life, you could see if you see someone walking like that, you know that the person is not in the best frame of mind, right? Dejection. So, what is that person doing in that movie? That person is actually imitating a certain body language that can easily be seen in real life also in some ways. Okay. And even in cartoon movies and animations, you will see that if they have to show somebody as dejected, they will use the same body language, probably hands in pockets and the head a little, downwards. So, and then you have hand on cheek. So, evaluation. For example, if I'm thinking like this and if I'm looking at you when you're speaking, I mean, doesn't it automatically implies that I'm evaluating you or I'm thinking something? I mean, look at these interviews with politicians. When they have these one-to-one interviews, we often see that some of them are sitting like this and thinking, and even other celebrities for that matter, or thinkers, philosophers, even teachers, right? So right now, even when I teach, sometimes I go like this because I'm thinking about something, right? So touching, slightly rubbing nose, rejection, doubt, lying. Okay, this one is interesting and new for me as well. So when someone is probably doing this, one is that they have cold. Okay, so there we should not get judgmental. Second is that they are probably not. I mean, sometimes you'll see in these reality shows, the judges are sitting and when they are saying something to the other person, they go like this, right? And they're saying, or they are like this. Okay, if they don't like something. So you see, and we don't really, and we know these things, but we don't really talk about it, or we don't consciously know these traits. So it is pretty interesting to read about this, isn't it? Or, uh, or if someone is rubbing the eye. So let's say if somebody goes like this. So again, I mean, you don't always have to overread into it. Maybe the person is, just probably itchy there. But it also shows doubt or disbelief. You're saying something and I go like this. So it means maybe I don't believe you, or I have some doubts about this idea. All right. I mean, I'm not sure about that, right? So this was about body language. Now, all that we have talked about and we have occasionally linked it to the interviews. Now, let's look at the interview part specifically. Okay, what are the important points to remember when we talk about body language during interview? First and foremost is your resume, because even before you appear before the interview panel, they are creating a certain first impression on the basis of your resume. So, what kind of resume should be there? That obviously, and it's also because you're doing it at home, so you have a lot of time to work on it. So, prepare an impressive resume. That's number one. Second, appropriate clothing and presentation. So, what are the clothes that you wear? Of course, it matters, right? You cannot, when you are appearing for interviews, you have a dress code. Now, what kind of organization you are appearing for, uh, that will determine the kind of clothes that you should, focus on. So, how you present yourself. More than often, we ignore the aspect of presentation. Presentability plays a role. Maybe it's not as much. Obviously, when somebody is going to hire you, they're not going to hire you for your looks until and unless it is for glamour industry. Okay, the only but they do expect you to be presentable to a certain extent. Your main factor, the main factor there will be your talent, your behavior. Okay, so that includes body language as well. But your clothing, your presentability, your communication, these are all added advantages. And of course, the body language after clothing and presentation. Then, what should your body language be like? Your body language in an interview should be you're interested and yet relaxed. You're interested, but you're not intimidating the other person. Like, sometimes it is said that if you have to show interest in what the other person is talking uh, slightly, you move forward, but you don't have to, take their space. Like, we were talking about the different aspects of types of body language. So we talked about movement, how much movement is important, how much distance is important, how much space is required. This all constitutes body language, right? Now, how do you face the interview panel? Remember, we talked about adequate eye contact. So, face the interview panel with adequate eye contact. Now, what is adequate eye contact? I've already covered. Next thing is place your hands on your lap or on the armrest of your chair. So, let's say if I'm talking like this, what is armrest of the chair? These things on the sides, right? So, I have to place my hands here, and if I'm sitting in the interview, probably, I'll be sitting straight, erect, and I'll place my hands here. Why will I be, sitting straight? Because I have to show that I'm alert. Okay, so I'm relaxed, but I'm alert. And if I place my hands on the lap, that means that there will not be any extra hand movements. Right? Okay, so it's okay if you are giving hand movements, but that should not be distracting others from what you're saying. Hand movements are important in order to emphasize what you're saying. It's not meant to distract people, like they keep on looking at the hand movements. It's not a puppet show, right? So that's there. So this is the ideal or preferred body language in the interview. So if I have to sit like this, so I'm relaxed, right? It's here. My arms are here on the armrest of the chair. My hands are here, and when I talk, It makes perfect, and I have to maintain proper eye contact. So let's say if the person asking me the question is on this side, so I look at them, I give them more attention because the question has been asked by him or her. But then I'll also in between, I'll also look at other people while explaining my point, and then I'll go back to him. So what happens that while you ensure that you are specifically answering to that particular person, at the same time you are making an eye contact with other people to let them know that you have not ignored their existence and you acknowledge their presence, and you think what you're saying is important, is specifically directed at answering that person's question, that employees or the person in the interview board's question. But at the same time, others are listening to you and you realize this and they are evaluating you. Okay? So, last point is be conscious of the body language of the interviewing panel for better understanding of them. This is very important. So, all the exercises that you got, what were the exercises that that one I gave you from my side, and the other is there in your study material of observation, right? Whether when you are watching a movie or show, you're observing the body language, you're observing what they are saying, how what they are saying, how is it intended. Then it is about observing people around you, your family members, or wherever you're sitting in a classroom, start observing your classmates. If you do it on a regular basis, there are so many things that you'll start noticing, and it will probably make it easier for to understand what people are saying, what is the subtext of thoughts going beneath what they are communicating through their conscious minds. Maybe even they don't know that, more than often that happens. Okay, so let's move to the next aspect, which is grammar. So we are going to talk about conditional clauses here. If, how we use if. So let's say the sentence is T.O. has lost his watch. He thinks it might be in Lynn's house. So he says, if I find my watch in Lynn's house, I'll give you a call. There is a strong possibility that he will find the watch. Okay. If I find my watch in Lynn's house, I will give you a call. So that means he thinks that the watch is in Lynn's house. So he's lost a watch. And let's say if you've lost something and you don't remember where it is lost. So the sentence might be different. What you will probably say is that I lost my watch. I don't know where it is. But if you're saying I lost the watch, I'll go and I think it is in the metro. I'll go and look. I'll go back and look for it. So that means you have a strong possibility there that you have left it there. You probably have a strong hunch about it. Now, second, Aisha imagines what she'll do if she wins the lottery. If I won a lottery, I would give it to charity. Now, here, Aisha is imagining the possibility of winning a lottery, but she does not believe in that possibility so much. Um, okay, so in sentence one, you see we are referring to an action or event that will be possible or is likely to happen. Therefore, we promise something. What is happening in sentence one? Tio is saying, if I find the watch in Lynn's house, I will give you a call. So, what is happening here? There is a strong possibility that he will find the watch. And he is referring to an action or event that will be possible or is likely to happen. So, he is promising it. And in such cases, we use the simple present tense in the if clause and simple future in the when clause. If I won a lottery, go back to that sentence. Gio has lost his watch. Okay, so now what he says is, if I find my watch in Lynn's house, simple present tense, I will give you a call. Okay, simple future tense. I will give you a call is simple future tense. If I find my watch in Lynn's house, simple present tense. First part is in present tense, second part is in future tense, and both are in simple present tense and simple future tense. But look at the second sentence. Here we are referring to an action or event that is imaginary or impossible. In such cases, we use the simple past tense in the if clause and would put the first form of the verb in the main clause. Okay. So what is happening? It is something which is imaginary or impossible. So winning a lottery, chances of finding the watch in Lynn's house has a higher possibility for Theo than that of Aisha winning a lottery. So it is sort of imaginary and maybe impossible as well because possible but not highly probable. Okay, so in such cases we use the simple past tense in the if clause and we plus the first form of the verb in the main clause. Okay, if the main clause comes before the if clause, we don't put comma before the if clause. If I won a lottery, comma, I would give it to charity. Okay, so you see the difference between the first sentence and the second sentence, right? In the first sentence, there is a strong possibility. In the second sentence, it's more of a probability. Okay, so now we are talking about portfolio making. We're going to talk about this. Here are some more examples of the use of if conditional clauses. I would be very frightened. We just talked about if as the conditional clause. So let's see more examples too. We have already covered in Gio and Aisha. This example. Now, third would be I would be very frightened if a thief entered my home. I would be very frightened if a thief entered my home. If I go to France this summer, I will visit all the museums. Okay. If you ask me out for dinner, I would order a vegetarian meal. If you love me, you would not do this to me. Okay. So conditional, there is a condition. So conditional clause. So you see the second part is dependent on the first part here. So if you loved me, so you would not do this to me. When will you not do this to me? If you love, I'm not gonna hurt my. Let's say if you say I'm not gonna hurt my teacher because I respect her. Okay, I'm not gonna hurt my mother because I love her. Okay, so there, what is the condition? I mean, because you love your mother, so you're not going to hurt her. Because you respect your teachers, so you're not going to say this to them. Okay, so if if um, okay, so we would this is like when if is being used in the all these sentences, most of these sentences you see if is being used in the beginning. Now in the third sentence, I would be very frightened if a thief entered my home. Similarly, last sentence, we would all be very ill if we drank the water from that tap. Okay, so these are the ways in which if can be used as a conditional clause. And why are we covering this in this paper? Because let's say if you have, if somebody asks you a question, if you are selected for this job, what are you going to offer to our company? Okay. If you are given this role, what do you propose would be your investment in our company as a as so and so employee? Right? So, how do you articulate your answers? You know, all these exercises are not given just for fun. These will be required, and these are important for this paper. So, the use of this conditional clause would be very high when you're referring to, let's say, if you're saying, if I'm chosen for this job, if I'm selected for this role, I would or I will. Okay, depending on the question that has been asked. Okay. So you have to look at the use of will and would. All right, now next is the objectives of portfolio making. The objectives of portfolio making, you will also learn what a portfolio is. Okay, the difference between a portfolio and a resume, the importance of having a portfolio, what materials to collect for a portfolio. These are the things when you're creating a portfolio, you need to keep all this in mind. You know, what materials to collect for a portfolio, the order of documents in a portfolio, to arrange documents in a portfolio according to relevance for a job, and to write a brief profile of yourself, highlighting your strengths. The importance of having a web version of a portfolio. If you have it in hard copy, well and good, but you should have a soft copy as well, a web version of your portfolio, so that it's easier to access and available to you at your convenience and for the other person also. Okay, resume can be written in 2 3 ways. It's there. Okay, so how is a portfolio different from a resume? A portfolio, this question we raised in the previous slide. So, a portfolio is not a resume. The first personal document in the portfolio is the resume. Okay, your portfolio includes resume. Okay, so it's a larger term. And portfolio contains tangible evidence of your skills and abilities. So when you're creating a resume, you are just writing the things that you're capable of or you have achieved until now. But a portfolio will contain tangible evidences. So what is the first thing that comes to mind? Photographs, maybe, certificates, maybe. Okay, so these are the evidence of your skills and abilities. It may contain colorful graphics relevant to the skills required for the position sought. A portfolio, what are colorful graphics? The certificates, the photographs, okay, so the testimonials. So a portfolio is not, and not like anything. I mean, your friend wrote a nice sentimental testimonial to you. That's not a part of your portfolio, right? Something that is relevant to the skills and abilities that you are trying to uh, highlight there for that particular role. They don't care about what your best friend or your I mean, it is relevant only to a certain degree, but mostly they are concerned about how you are relevant uh, to the position that they are hiring for. Okay, so it may contain colorful graphics relevant to the skills required for the position sought. A portfolio is not sent out like a resume. It is usually taken along at the time of interview. So resume would be sent online, and it could also be that sheet of paper that you can take. It's not very huge, but a portfolio, or you could mail it, email it, mail it as well in the post. But the portfolio, you can't mail, a really thick file of your um, credentials. So it is usually taken along at the time of the interview. You carry it, right? And then you sit with it. So just imagine that entire interview scenario: how you enter, how you pull your chair, how you place your portfolio. Because resume they might have already, might have a copy of it already in their hands. All right, a portfolio is not sent out like a resume. It is usually taken along at the time of the interview, and a portfolio is a powerful interviewing tool for just about all job seekers. It's a very powerful interviewing tool. It is a visual representation of your abilities. Representation of your abilities, skills, capabilities, knowledge, qualities, and it represents your potential. It presents tangible proof of your skills and portfolio making abilities. So what happens that you might have written that I was awarded by so and so person, but if you have a picture depicting that